Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this FP&A Trends Webinar, where today we're going to look at the dynamic shift. So how do we master AI-infused predictive planning and forecasting? My name is Hans Gobin. I'm going to be your facilitator for today, and I am an FP&A board ambassador as well. So just so you know, we are joined by nearly 400 people from 45 countries around the world, and we've got three very exciting presentations to come as well. So what have we got on the agenda for you today? Today we're going to look at predictive planning and forecasting, a little bit about stats, and then some insight on the maturity model as well. And then we will start with our first presentation, where we'll look at best practices and examples of AI-infused forecasting. We will then move on to look at a case study, very specifically on cash flow and how AI and ML has helped there. And finally, we will finish with looking at infusing AI in enterprise applications. So what can software and technology do for you these days? So very interesting sets of presentation. We will finish off with conclusions and recommendation. And of course, let's not forget, in the end, we have our own very exciting Q&A session. So ladies and gentlemen, please, ask question via the chat box now if you've got any in relation to the topic we're going to speak of, or wait till the presenters have finished presenting and direct the question to who you want it to be answered. So thank you very much for that. It is a great time now for me to ask to introduce my panelists, but also ask them to come on the webcam, please. If you can all come on the webcam and come off mute, I will start by introducing our first panelist, who is Saurabh Jain, CFO, also business transformation leader within the healthcare industry. Saurabh is based in New York, USA, and today he will talk to us about best practices and examples of AI. Saurabh, it's fantastic to have you on our panel again.
Thanks, Hans, and I'm very happy to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Saurabh. And now we move on to our second panelist today, Lena Para-Cartagena, Associate Director of Finance at Vertex, joining us from Boston in the USA. And today she's going to show us her case study where she used AI in predictive planning, very much specific to how she did it using cash flow. Lena, great to have you on the panel today.
Thank you, Hans, for inviting me. Looking forward.
Thank you very much, Lena. Last but not least, we've got Nick Verhoeven, who is Solution Manager, Planning and Analytics at SAP. He joins us from Utrecht in the Netherlands, and today we are going to look through infusing AI in enterprise planning from Nick. Nick, great to have you with us again.
Thank you very much, Hans. Excited to be here for an exciting topic.
Thank you very much, panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got three great presentations, three great panelists awaiting in the next couple of sessions. But for now, panelists, if you can turn your webcam off and then go on mute, I've got some housekeeping to do as usual. The first one there is I would like to introduce our global sponsor, which is SAP. And we all know SAP very well. They have one of the world's leading providers of FP&A modern solutions. So thank you very much, SAP. A quick slide on projects and initiative by our own FP&A Trends group. Delighted to announce that we are now in 32 cities, 18 countries, and on 4 continents. So come and see us at one of these meetings we have, FP&A board. Come and join the FP&A Insight, our digital community, various different ways, our own website, our webinars, as you are on one today, our LinkedIn group, and of course, our FP&A Trends Digest. And finally, FP&A Education, Research and Consulting. We do quite a bit there as well. So come and join us there to have a full view and perspective of what we do. Quickly, so the webinar is for a full hour. Your participation is very much required. We've got 2 great polling questions to learn about how you dealing with AI, machine learning in planning, And also we want your questions. So please ask us questions on anything related to this topic and anything that the presenters are going to talk to us about. The presentation is available to download for you right now, or if you don't, then you'll receive a copy and the recording after the meeting. Also, at the end of a meeting, please give us 30 seconds to a minute of your time. You will get a feedback session pop up when I close the meeting. Please tell us how we did, and also tell us what is it you are looking for us to talk to you about in the next few sessions. Now, quickly from me, I just want to put a bit of an introduction. I think we've seen this quite a few times, but it really brings the message home as to we as FP&A, we're still spending 45% of our time on low value added activities, where 33% on high value. We wish we were doing at least 55% or more. 42% of respondents can produce a forecast in less than a week. That's huge. That's huge. So the rest are taking very, very long time to do a forecast. And again, 39% of respondents are satisfied with their forecast. But what happens when we bring technology into play? So if we look at the second box there, the use of AI ML, all those percentages increase. So from 33 to 49% total there in terms of spending 49% of our time on value-added activities there. So very, very important there. So this is one of the key reasons why we should implement AI and ML in predictive planning. A quick definition slide here. I'm not going to go through this, but this is for your own consuming your own time. It clears what is what. They are very specific and very different terms. So just finally moving on to what the predictive planning and forecasting maturity model is, I will leave that for you to spend a bit of time and understand. We've got the 6 swim lanes, so data, drivers, driver-based model, processes, FP&A skills and technology. And you can see from left to right, we go into all the different states and the different stages. And it's very important to understand what the leading state and leading organization are doing in each of these states. So we will see some live examples today from our 3 speakers. So I will let them take you through some of these, but please spend some time, understand this, and make sure you put this into practice in your own organization. So I now move on and gladly introduce Saurabh Jain again, who is CFO in healthcare business, and he's going to take us through best practices and examples of AI. Saurabh, over to you.
Thank you very much, Hans. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the FP&A colleagues, professionals from all over the world. So I focus on AI and particularly around the open AI, because that's something that has taken the world by a bit of a surprise, and more than that, it has opened up seas of opportunities. The potential is unlimited, and the impact on the financial world is quite significant. What we've started to see is that open AI platforms such as ChatGPT have started to emerge with some multiple use cases. Initially, they're more around assisting in core transaction processing, mixing up the digital numbers world with the language landscapes, and easing up the regular work that's happening around in the background. What we have seen, the outcome is still questionable. I mean, who can forget Bard making up the outcome and was able to pick up some exoplanet photographs that never existed or gave wrong dates. But what it means is that the potential for OpenAI in mixing up data, languages, and having use cases needs to be strongly augmented with business understanding. So the potential for application is huge, but we need to augment it with business understanding and models to validate the outcomes. Hans, maybe we can move on to some real examples now. Okay, so since 2022, when OpenAI became relevant, the early open cases right now is already with people who've started their own localized small setups on integrating large data that already exists in augmenting and supporting existing processes. The perfect examples that I've already seen within the area of where I work is in large volume reconciliations, automation of AP processes, expense categorization, particularly around FP&A and the budgets and identification of the drivers, fraud detection and liquidity planning is being one of the leading use cases that we have seen where we've used OpenAI platform to do a much better job in much faster time frames within the liquidity planning phase. The new set of cases that now are successfully running, and we are working on a few of those already, is combining investor relations. So all the external communications, digitally analyzing the information, competitive landscapes, and variance analysis on the driver-based models, etc., are already beginning to come. And that is a perfect blend of perfectly saying that we have the drivers, and now the system is already writing down the commentaries to explain those drivers, and without a significant amount of inputs required from the human force that is supporting these functions. And then I've already started seeing some additional linkages with deep process mining. So these are, I would say, in next few years, we would start to get more comfortable around these possible scenarios, and then leading on to where the future is. Once we are able to counter and build up models around data validation, then we can actually apply it for detailed scenario planning, multiple usage of risk simulation tools and bringing it together with the financial information and automating it end to end. That would be something that I already foresee towards the end of this decade, where OpenAI platforms, along with the existing risk and planning tools, would create a landscape of further utilization. Next slide, please. Okay. So I have on the left side tried to rationalize it with the hype circle. OpenAI and AI tools have created a lot of digital hype. And I just wanted to rationalize it to a point where at some point of time, the peak is going to ebb down and we would see a steady state of productivity finally emerging after we've seen a fall and then incremental evolutionary learnings that we would have. But some of the key driving points would be that AI is here to stay. And it has opened up the door for significant amount of automation, and the applications are immense. The organizations who are able to link up the teams, the talent, training, and have access to data marts, big data lakes, and are able to integrate this will have significant amount of competitive edge in times to come, not only in terms of productivity, but in better decisions, faster decisions, and ability to leverage those decisions into actual actions. One point that I want everybody to be very careful about, that we need to segregate the real thing from the jargon. The purpose of, from an FP&A perspective, the purpose of all these tools is predictive analytics. And we do not have to confuse things in terms of everything is AI or AI is good everywhere. We just have to stay very focused that we need to develop actionable predictive analytics. The core challenges, they are very pertinent today, and it's going to remain a very, very important chapter in times to come, is around data accuracy, data privacy as to who can access all the information, building up the models that could validate output, and ultimately a human sense to be able to segregate the info delusion with reality. Just imagine if we had everything done by a systematic algorithm without the taste of reality, how difficult would it be for us to take real decisions? But keeping in view of all these challenges, pluses and minuses in front of us, I would still say, let us embrace the technology. The leaders for tomorrow, in fact, the leaders of today, thinking through tomorrow, will have to create the proof of concepts. They would have to lead building up the talent pools, combining technical colleagues as well as data scientists, collaborate with their technology teams, business, and be the champion of the cause. Do not avoid it. With that, I hand you back to Hans. Thank you very much.
Saurabh, thank you very much. What an exciting presentation. I mean, you've taken us right through that journey, and of course, then we're talking about what are we hopefully going to see in the next few years and by the end of the decade itself. So a brilliant presentation there. Thank you very much. What I would like to now do is ask our audience what they're doing in this space. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you can vote, please, we want you to vote. Do you use predictive prescriptive analytics to facilitate decision making within your organization? Yes, we do, and it really helps us. We will be implementing in the short term, so we're not doing it. It is part of our longer term strategy, so that's going to happen in a few years' time. Or finally, no, we do not have any plans of implementing any of this. So if you can vote, please. Do you use predictive prescriptive analytics to facilitate decision making? Yes, we do. It provides great advantages. We will be implementing in short term. Third answer, in the longer term. And then finally, no, we don't have any plans to do that. So I'm now going to close this and share it with everyone. So what we're seeing here is 17% say yes, they do, and it has provided quite a bit of advantages. 13% will be implementing in the shorter run. 64% longer term strategy. 7% no, we do not have any plans for implementation. Saurabh, a quick insight in the poll here from you, please.
So I'm not surprised. It's definitely good to see that nearly 20% people have already embarked on the journey, but a good, 75% is keenly interested in it, is whether it's immediate future or in a not so distant time in future. So it's pretty much in line with what I had been expecting, and that it's a topic that's going to stay here for some time to come. Absolutely
spot on. So let us hide this, yeah, there is a lot of opportunity. This is why we're here, hopefully to help people have the conversation and get on board with this. So panelists, can I just invite you all back? We have just seen a few examples and quite a great conversation from Saurabh. But really, have we seen any example of AI and machine learning in planning driving high level of productivity? This is the question. So I'm going to go around the house and ask each of our panelists. So can I start with you, Lena? Have you seen any such?
Yes, of course. And I think that the case that I will present, it's a great example. So for numbers of productivity, let's say that we used to produce the forecast in 3 days, so 24 hours of work, and we reduce those 3 days into 1 day, so a reduction of 2/3 by implementing machine learning with predictive analytics for the cash flow. So yes, I have seen it in my true life, and I have seen how it changed the productivity of a FP&A team.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Nick, what is your opinion on this?
Well, actually, the poll was quite interesting, as in it showed exactly my experience with our customers, right? It's a smaller group that is really getting full value out of it. And one of the examples that is close to my heart is a pharmaceutical company. And actually, for their R&D expense planning, they were able to automate 16,000 of the 20,000 data points that they needed to create, and also increase their accuracy. And what I found very interesting about that point is that 4,000 points were not automatable, not predictable. So that was difficult to apply AI to. However, they become more accurate. And I believe that is because they've automated what is predictable and are now focusing on what is not predictable. And that focus, that enhanced focus of people on the data, and then giving them time as well to focus on these elements, is providing them with this accuracy. So it's efficiency and accuracy together, and we do see it in practice.
Brilliant answer there. Great example as well. So thank you very much for that. Shorab, coming back to you now.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback on what Nick said. What we have seen is that we are able to see things or leverage information that we didn't have access to, and also integrate it with the financial information. So it's a matter of productivity and also reducing uncertainty. So it has helped in both ways. And in fact, we've driven from repetitive tasks to more decision-making and analytical areas.
Absolutely spot on. And I'm sure this is going to probe into our next question as to, how our role does transform. So panelists, thank you very much. Now let us move on to our second element. So I'll ask the other panelists to switch off their webcam. Our second presenter, as you well know, is Lena, and she's from Vertex. And today she's going to talk to us about a case study on cash flow. Over to you, Lena, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Hans. So although I work today for Vertex, this business case is from a previous experience in Novartis. So for the ones who know, Novartis has been started pretty early with all the AI at FP&A, and I used to work in the digital op for finance in Barcelona, where they have a big op that works with both FP&A and the data scientist team. And coming back to the COVID pandemic, so 4 years ago, I was in charge of the cash flow of Spain. And I don't know if you remember those days, but in those days, there was like this fear all around the European Union about the lack of liquidity inside of all the economy system. And we were trying to predict as accurate as possible all the cash flow of the affiliate to secure the liquidity. So we have these major variables of the cash flow in the Spanish subsidiary. The main one was the account receivable that accounted for 70% of the cash flow. And then we have other 3 variables that were the accounts payables, the OCA, so that stands for the account of other current assets, and then the other current liabilities that all of them accounted for 30% of our total cash flow at that time. I think that the main point of this presentation, or this practical business case, that I just wanted to also present a practical business case, is responding to the question on how AI, in this case, machine learning, can really predict in an accurate manner the cash flow, and how this can actually allow you to create a competitive advantage for your company or for the affiliate that you're working for, when you apply actually all these predictive analytics, how it can really generate at the end a business impact. That is what we are looking for as an FP&A team. So in the next, moving to the next slide, we have these two variables, I would say, or these two buckets of nature of variables. We have the APA and OCA and OCL that are very, let's say, predictable with the historical data. And when we are confronted to this kind of variables, we have to go and search for the historical data and then to build a model with the data scientists to predict the future. So what we are going to do is we have different types of statistical models that can help us. In that moment, it was, I think, linear regression that helped us to predict. Pretty easy, let's say, exercise, because you have to go into your historical data to predict the future. However, I think that the problem becomes harder to solve when you are in an uncertain time. Again, in the context I explained that it was the COVID pandemic situation. And you have then the account receivables, where it accounts for 70% of our total cash flow, but completely unpredictable with a historical data. Why? Because we have 70 customers that were the autonomous region in Spain. We have other 3 private customers that were not paying as they used to pay us before, because remember that everyone at that time was behaving in a very hectic behavior. So how we can do to predict the future if our historical data does not allow us to do so? So in that case, we're going to do what we call anticipated analytics. And we are going to then list all the variables that are in the real time, in real time relevant in order to predict the future. So in this case, we listed the level of orders of each customer. We listed how much the European Union was injecting into the healthcare system of Spain, the frequency that they were supposed to inject the economy, or the European Union was supposed to send all the funds to the Spanish government. We also try to do some credit rates between each of our customers in order to predict then how much will be the AR and the DCO for each customer. So I think that, again, machine learning is not only used for historical data. You can use actually machine learning also for real-time data. Train your model and then do the essays of your model. I think that the most important point of this business case is actually to show you how this impacts the business. So in the next slide, actually, we're going to present I would say that 3 different main impacts that I think that are relevant for this business case. So of course, the first one is that we could not only decrease the AR and also the DSO, but also we could anticipate the level of AR and DSO in order to negotiate a better fee with the bank, with the battery bank. And we were doing this even in February or March, early in 2020, which actually allow us to secure the liquidity of the affiliate for the rest of the year and even for 2021. We actually were rated as a best case for Europe. Then I think that at the end, what these allow us, or what AI allow us in FP&A, is actually to create a competitive differentiation for any company and even for any subsidiary. And of course, the early that you start to do this, the best you are going to be positioned, because as Shara explained, you have to create talent, you have to train the talent. And that is, I think, is the part that is, of course, is not easy when you catch up very late. I would like just to end up this presentation with a quote of Kenneth D. Forbes of the National Science Board. The meeting was 15 days ago. I think that there is a YouTube video of the National Science Board. And actually, he says that AI allows to augment, not to replace. And coming back to this competitive differentiation of any company, I think that actually what AI allow us to do in terms of FP&A is actually augment and not replace the added value that we add to any business as FP&A practitioners. So with that, I end up and I give the word to Hans for the questions.
Thank you very much, Lena. Great presentation. And what we've seen, even though the example is from the COVID period, it's to do with uncertainty and how you navigated uncertainty, but how you came on top with the competitive advantage, which is what we're looking for. I think the other aspect there is predictable and not predictable. And then what did you do with the non-predictable? How did you use actual data and live data to be able to predict the future as well? So there doesn't seem to be any case where you can't actually use it. So thank you enormously for those examples. I think what we do next is we ask our audience a similar question, and let's see what they are doing. So did AI-powered predictive planning lead to better adaptability during uncertain times for you in your organization? So for those who are using it, please let us know. Yes, it helped us quickly adjust to market changes and deal with it accordingly. No, it didn't make any noticeable difference. We haven't experienced significant uncertainties yet, which is a bit, yeah, it depends what industry you are. And finally, we haven't implemented AI for this purpose. So if you can vote, please. So did AI-powered predictive planning lead to better adaptability during uncertain time? Yes, it helped us. No, it didn't help us. We haven't experienced significant uncertainties. And finally, we haven't implemented AI for this purpose. So I'm now going to close the poll and share the results. So if I share the results, 14% is saying yes, it helped us quickly to adapt to market changes. It didn't make zero, didn't make anything. We haven't experienced uncertainties, 8%, and finally 78%, we haven't implemented AI for this purpose. Lena, can I circle back to you for a comment on this quick outcome, please?
Yes, of course. I think that also when we are in uncertain times, sometimes we have fear, no? And when we are not trained to use something where we have fear, we're not going to use it. But I think that the more that we're going to be trained to use AI, the more it's going to become more natural, let's say, to use AI for uncertain times.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on there. And I think when you look at the percentages themselves, I think we had 17% using AI for predictive planning. So, you know, if 14% have seen a real difference when they're dealing with uncertainty. So it looks like it's almost 100% of the people. AI in uncertain environment has really helped their organization to gain competitive edge. So that's absolutely brilliant. Now let us hide this and let us move on to our next session. So if I may invite the other panelists to come and join us, please. Lena, you nicely closed off with that quote there. And this is a very interesting question that we keep on asking ourselves over the last few years as to, will AI in this instant fully replace FP&A function in future years? So what do our panelists think? Saurabh, what are your thoughts?
So this is a question that's been doing the rounds pretty much, and I would say the answer is, would AI take my job? The answer is no, but someone who knows AI will certainly do that. So the future is people who have the required skills.
Thank you very much for your answer. Brilliant answer there. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can't help but agree with Lena, Saurabh, Kenneth, for that matter, on the fact that indeed the augmentation will be key, right? There's a nice article that was in the Dutch Financial Times this weekend, and it was in the world of academic research. And there they were discussing there's a new large language model, indeed, that can go through articles much quicker than humans could. And in 99 out of 100 cases, it would provide the relevant articles for the type of hypothesis that someone would raise. So in the amount of research that's increasing and increasing, it's paramount that you use tools like this, because you don't have the time. You go from 30 minutes to do this from months before. So it's paramount that you actually apply this. But you did hear me say 99 out of 100. meaning there's still checking that needs to be done. People need to understand where it's coming from. The model needs to be retrained over time, still seeing if there might be some data bias in there. So skills will change, but the function will definitely not be replaced. This is an example from a different industry, but I think it applies just as well.
Absolutely spot on there. So thank you very much for that, Nick. And we circle back with you, Lena. What are your thoughts on this?
No, I would say that it's important just to come back to the history. So there are many histories around the human history, and one of the economists that I love to read about innovation is Joseph Schumpeter. So very classic in the 40s when he analyzed what happened with the innovations of the Fordism and all the entrepreneurship here in the US. And he has a term that is very known. So it's a creative destruction. So basically any innovation, even AI, of course, it will create a creative destruction. So maybe there are many jobs that maybe will be disrupted or the change. But at the end, I think, as Sharo was saying, they are going to be replaced by the people actually who knows very well how to use AI. So it's not that you're going just to destroy, but there's going to be a replacement with this innovation.
Absolutely spot on. And at the end of the day, it's about transforming. It will transform the way FP&A works, and we've got to transform with it, with the knowledge of AI, machine learning, so that we can move on as well. And those who don't will become irrelevant. So panelists, thank you very much for that. Before we move on to our next session, we have got quite a few questions. I'll just like to remind our audience, please keep sending your question. You've heard from 2 speakers already. Nick is going to come next. What we'll try and do is answer some of your questions today. Those we can't answer, we will answer to you directly via email. So do not hesitate, keep sending your question right till the end. So panelists, thank you for that. Let us now move on to our next session, which is coming from Nick. So Nick, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much. So hello, everyone. Looking at it from a slightly different angle, so from a software vendor point of view. And what we notice with our clients, there's a very high demand in how will generative AI, and that's the specific ask we get, how will it help us improve our FP&A practice? And with that, we see a big fear of missing out. Everyone wants to be on the wave with ChatGPT. Everyone is awake, and what can we do to help us here? And I think to go through that, it is relevant to go through the different steps that one might look at AI. So let's call it traditional AI, where we have analyze and then predict, and then we get to create, and how that will then help actually generative AI. So starting with analyze, this is something that software vendors have been putting in their products for quite a while. This is providing statistics directly to the end user. So this could be simple min, max, average type of stuff, or a little bit more advanced, providing the correlations that we see in the data model that the end user might be looking at. And this can be very generic, right? So this can be applied to any type of data set, as sometimes the correlations aren't as smart as you'd like them to be, but it can be applied everywhere. And with that, it is accessible to everyone in any case. So it's generic purpose, and this can be used for many different instances and is applied in many applications. If you go to the next step in this level is you want to apply it to a very specific case. So you might want to predict something. So in predictive forecasting, which is relevant for FP&A, what we typically see, there is a specific use case where we envision a lot of value if we run an automated prediction as opposed to pure manual prediction. And we choose to get our technical experts aligned and figure out what we can do. We build the use case, and it's less autonomous. It's not generic. We can't apply it everywhere. A nice example would be what we did at SAP ourselves. So we have a decentral forecast and a central forecast. The decentral forecast, let's say, is full of ambition, which is nice, but we also needed something that is more accurate on the overall global level of the company for investor relations and such. So on the next slide, what I would like to look at is actually a demo with anonymized data of what we've applied in SAP itself. So as we start the video, what we see, it's a repeatable process. We'll look first at analyze, so analysis. So we'll figure out what is the latest, what did we do in our last forecast? Do we see big deviations? between the actuals, the budget, and the forecast. We look at the different accounts from the P&L that you might be responsible for and the commentary given. And then we get into planning. And the first thing you might note is, yes, there is a predictive scenario, but we also offer the option to the end users to plan the old-fashioned way. So we would change budget consumption. How much budget do we consume by this month? We enter the numbers. And now the end user can choose. Do I choose the prediction or do I choose budget consumption? Very important here is that the end user is taken along for the ride. So how does this prediction come about? So understanding how do we apply this, to what account, what is the source data, potential drivers or influences that we've added, and then also the outcome. If we compare this to the actuals of the past, how realistic is it that this is a good prediction? Now the end user can choose. This seems like a good scenario, so I'll use that as a base. Very important here is the base. So now with the next step, we've loaded the predictive scenario to base, but we also offer the capability to the controller to make adjustments, make slight changes. So in this case, we change it with a negative 10 million because there's a contract expiration. Management might make adjustments on top. But the most important part of this process is we've taken them along for the ride. We show them what the power of the prediction could potentially be. Adjustments can be made, but commentary is mandatory. And then in the end, it all comes together because then we can analyze, okay, what did the original prediction say? How does that compare to adjustments that might potentially have been made? And what was more accurate over time? So in this case, we go to the overall management view and we look at the entire P&L, and then we see the comments that have been made for those specific adjustments for forecast 7. And then we understand, we focus on whatever is outliers or what is different from our expectation, and thus we focus our efforts on what's relevant as well as automate a certain part. Now, what is so interesting about this use case is we've been running these automated predictions for 2 years in the backend with actually more accurate results than the manual global forecast, which sounds amazing, but also tells you we didn't use them for 2 years because there was no trust. And in the end, we built a process step by step with experts, with business people aligning on what is relevant and how can we run through it. And still there's a lot of steps in between. But the accuracy gains and the efficiency gains that we've achieved here, they mainly come from a part automation, but also focus on the outliers. Now, how does this then relate to the create bit? So this is quite exciting, right? Generative AI is all about creating new content from scratch and making it accessible to any type of user. So what can a generative AI assistant do? So there's a number of things. Analytical, you can ask queries that give me the latest data for XYZ, and the AI assistant should take care to give you the most trusted and governed data for that specific question you're asking. Functional as well. Not everyone is an expert in the tool. So you can ask AI to help you create a calculation that others can reuse to create data actions or rules in the platform. Scripting, right? All the platforms are open with APIs now. And if you want to do something using those APIs, typically you need script. With the AI assistant, you can guide yourself towards that. And finally, informational. How do I do something, right? Helping you understand the platform itself. And there's 2 things that are relevant here. One, the data should stay within the premises. This is not your average ChatGPT, what will the weather be like tomorrow? This is business data. So this is confidential, needs to stay within the premise. Second bit, it is super relevant that it applies to your case. So you need to be able to be sure that you can leverage that AI assistant to build, for example, these analysis or predictions that we saw from traditional AI in the past. Now, what could that look like? We've prepared a nice vision demonstration on the next slide, where we'll be looking at the interaction that a user might have with generative AI in this case. So if we start the video, what we see, I'm doing everything via natural language. So I'm asking it to create a dashboard or report for me, and it needs to include the 3 account hierarchies. And I would also like a variance to the budget compared to the actuals using the company template. So it used functionality from the platform already existing to give me this report. Well, this is nice. Within the report, I see commentary like we had in the prior case. But now what I can do, as opposed to research and drill down to all the commentary that's been made, use those large language models. Tell me a summary of what's happening in this specific data point right now. And will give me a summary. The summary is that inflation is a high hit on the expenses that we are expecting to make. So that's interesting. We can also drive a simulation here. So again, we're creating in the backend a different version, something else to interact with. So all kinds of functionality that we're raising, but just purely via natural language. Now we see a revised budget. That's interesting. But AI is also helping me a bit, as in, wouldn't you like to stress test this? And yes, I would. It's interesting to do a Monte Carlo analysis here, where I want to figure out, okay, what is my probabilities? And one of the things I'd like to use in this Monte Carlo is inflation, as we spoke about earlier. And now I would like to ask the system again, do we have trusted inflation rates within our data sets or within the data fabric that we have? It tells me from the World Bank, we have some inflation data, so you can use this in your analysis. I input that inflation data into my Monte Carlo analysis, and it will give me probabilities for a realistic, optimistic, and pessimistic scenario. So what we're doing here, in essence, is we're leveraging all kinds of capabilities that are already within the platform, but using these advanced large language models, we are able to go back and forth and leverage all kinds of different functionalities that a typical user might not have the skills for just yet, but generative AI helps them take that next step. So that is really the beauty and why I agree that it brings a lot of business value, but we need to be cognizant in the way that we apply it and also make sure that we apply the traditional AI and get the value out of it through generative AI. And that would be the end of the presentation here, and I look forward to the questions.
Nick, thank you very much. Great presentation. Of course, you shared with us both types of AI and ended up with two fantastic demonstrations as to what the software and what technology can do for us these days without even having to get something completely outside of scope, which is not part of your platform and tool itself. So thank you very much for that. Let us move on to our next point, where I will invite the other panelists to come and join us, please. So this is another very interesting question, because people always step away from going into AI because there might be a lot of pitfalls. So let us try and find out, what is the biggest pitfall in adoption of AI for business activities? And can I start with you, Shorab?
Yeah, so I would say AI is in its early stages of development, and the biggest challenges I have seen, or my work area has seen, is data privacy, and what we could do with it without sharing company confidential information with the outside world. So that becomes a very important thing, and we are not very open to let the entire platforms be shared and used by the entire company. So it's very restrictive to start with, and there are lots of checks and balances to consider. And second thing is, of course, the outcomes are still not as reliable. So the commentaries that I have seen, sometimes I laugh on them. So that's why it's still a fair mile before these are dependable in our day-to-day work.
Absolutely right. I think we're only just getting going, as you kindly pointed in your presentation in the beginning. So thank you very much for that, Shorab. Lena, can I come to you and find out what you think is the biggest pitfall?
Yes, I would come back again to a very practical example. In my case, I have seen that people fear actually the outcomes of the algorithm, especially when you, for example, predict their targets for commercial sales, or when you predict certain level of revenue. So when it comes to maybe touching certain rewards of people, we have what we call anxiety of the algorithm, or algorithm anxiety. So people still having in the organization a lot of fear of the outcomes, or the reliability, not of the data by itself, but for them it's a black box inside the algorithm. So I think that is where any project of implementation of AI in any company, I think, will have to fight against that fear of the algorithm.
Fantastic answer there. Yeah, absolutely. There is always that case to deal with. So thank you for that. Nick, let's circle back with yourself now.
Yeah, I think everyone's spot on, right? It's real-time data or the lack thereof in some cases. We see the FP&A trend survey, and every year we also see that how much time is spent on data validation, right? And the inputs that you need to bring to these models needs to be correct, right? Else no good will come from it. And if you don't have that quality of data to bring towards it, no AI will help you, right? You need to get that in order, and then you can move from there. And then, yeah, Lena's point is lovely, right? Like that's exactly it. So many people get stuck because they don't trust it. Like I don't believe it. You saw it in my case as well. You really need to take them along for the ride. Otherwise, they just shut the door in your face.
Fantastic answer there. Thank you very much. All three panelists, all great answers. So thank you very much for that. Before we move to the next stage, can I just remind people, please keep sending your questions. We've got lots of them, but we want to answer all of them. Some now, and the rest will be via email. So now we move to our exciting key takeaways, which is conclusion session, where we'll just go around the house and ask each of the panelists if they were to leave us with one conclusion on this topic that we've seen today, what would that be? Saurabh, can I ask you for your key conclusion, please?
Yeah, embrace it. This technology is the way forward, and learning the skills, building your talent pools, investing time, and being the front end runners would pay in the long run.
Fantastic. Thank you, Saurabh. Lena.
I would say try to educate yourself. It's a topic that also demands education. So I think that both academia and companies will have to really work together in order to introduce more AI and implement AI in a successful manner. So it doesn't stay being another project of a company, but really something embedded inside the culture of each company nowadays.
Brilliant. Thank you. Nick, your conclusion.
Yeah, I'd say it is what has been said through the webinars quite a few times. It's not going away. So make sure you train your people to be able to deal with AI. Also ensure that your hiring policy is focusing on people that are adapt to the new technologies. And there's all kinds of things that you can do to train yourself. I really like this example from generative AI in video, right? They create amazing videos and they stump me every time. Like I think it's real, I really do. But then someone told me, watch the fingers. The fingers are always off. They can be 6, can be 7, can be 8. And since someone told me that, I'm trained to look at a video now and like, hey, that one's fake, right? And it's a different example, but it's showing you, train yourself to understand it, to interpret it, and know what you can do with it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, panelists. Three great conclusions. Brilliant. Let us now move to our final part, which is our Q&A session. So we have lots of questions, but unfortunately, we will only have chance to go through one each. And I will start with Saurabh. Saurabh, a bit of a long question here, but bear with me. So using AI in predictive planning would involve financial investment, as we know. The benefits of productivity and efficiency are quantifiable, but they are also less quantifiable benefits. And you've gone through this process. Can you share what helped your organization decide to invest, and what is that process you went through?
Okay, so the organization that I work for is known for spearheading technology and application, and we are leaders in adapting technology. So it always has its implications in our footprint. But even if I were to exclude and really go through the true business case for adapting technology, so I talked about it earlier as well. There are two very significant things machines are able to do. Machines are able to read material which will take 20,000 man hours for a human being to read. And that by its own core definition, means that you can run through material after material and create meaningful inputs for us. That's one. The second thing is that we are seeing that technology is the front runner in decision making going forward, in terms of eliminating uncertainty, in looking at multifarious, multidimensional sources of information. And that is not humanly possible. So the days are gone. And I think that the onset of the realization is there that you cannot entirely depend on your historical financials. I mean, Nick's program is already showing those things. So investment in technology is going to pay for itself, not in terms of productivity, but also for just being relevant for the business.
Absolutely spot on. I think we've gone beyond the argument of why we need to invest in AI, because it's just so obvious. So thank you for that, Saurabh. Thank you very much. Let us go to Lena. Lena, a very interesting question, and we know you've got a lot of experience, and all the panelists do in this area. Do you think AI capability and tools will benefit larger companies over mid-size or small firms, or is there a level playing field? This is a misconception, I guess.
Yes, I think that for the benefit, it will benefit any company. And we already seen, like when you see the business cases of who has implemented AI in finance, you can see very large companies as Novartis or Coca-Cola, but you can see also very small, medium-sized companies. I think the cheese factory here in the US, they implemented it to trace all the forecasting for milk, for example. And there are small companies that I know that they have implemented AI for forecasting, and they have productivity in their finance team increasing in such a way that you can see it already. So I think it's not a question of is the company large or not. I think it's more, is the leadership team of the company ready to embrace AI? Because at the end, I think that tone is set on the leadership. They really have to embrace and then encourage AI. But coming back to the initial question, I would say that any company, independently of their size, will benefit from AI.
Yeah. So again, we circle back to probably Saurabh's same answer there. It has to be adopted. You've got to embrace it. It's about culture. It's about leadership. It's not about the size of the company. And sometimes you find the smaller the companies, they are more adaptable. They want to embrace it quicker compared to even the larger companies. So it doesn't really matter in this case. So thank you very much for that, Lena. And unfortunately, last question, and it goes to Nick. Nick, you've shared with us what SAP is doing in this space. The question comes around data privacy again. If these sources are open, which doesn't seem likely to be with a SAP tool, how can data privacy be maintained as sharing company data in an open source platform poses potential breaches to internal company procedures and policies, as well as unknown risks once data and information is out there? What can we do?
So I'd say if you go through these steps, right, and you take it seriously, and you're going to adapt AI, and you're going to adapt large language models that might be open AIs, right, and then it means something needs to go there. And any self-respecting software vendor will have a policy in which they will indicate exactly what goes in and out. And a good one would always indicate that the data that is the business data will stay within the walls of the company. They might leverage a model, but that data is not allowed to go there. If it's allowed to go there, I would say there's a red flag to be captured, and you really need to put fences around that use case, because business data is super valuable, needs to be treated as such. So I'd say check those contracts before you jump into the ship.
Yeah, no, spot on. I think of course there is a question around using the likes of Bard and ChatGPT for some of these things. Those come with massive warning, wouldn't you say?
Yes, definitely, because the free models, right? It's free is never free. We all know that. And bringing your data to something that's free means you're the one that's the product, right? And that's the same here, but then at scale. So also train your people to not use random tools to get done with their business data, because that's quite a risk actually.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for that, ladies and gentlemen, or panelists. Thank you exceptionally. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through the other questions, but what we'll do, we'll send them individually to you, and then we will send them individually to the people who have asked them. So panelists, I would stay on the camera. We've got another few slides to go through before we close off the webinar. So a couple of dates for your diary: 12th of June, Mastering and Analytical Transformation, and then 19th of June, Digitize FP&A Business Partnering. So please put that in your diary. It is a great time now to say a big, massive thank you to our global sponsor, SAP. Thank you very much, SAP, for making this possible. Greatest gratitude to our three amazing panelists, Shorab, Lena, and Nick, for sharing their fantastic presentation, insight, answering the questions and the discussion point. Thank you very much for your time. And finally, a big, massive thank you to everybody who's attended today. So thank you very much. We hope it's been very good to you and pose or raise quite a few questions in your mind as well. This is how you can keep in touch with us. Before I finish, I would like to just remind you, you will get a pop-up feedback session when I close. Spend 30 seconds, tell us how we did, but also tell us what would you like to hear from us in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be all for us for today. Thank you very much for attending our webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Goodbye for now, and we hope to see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.